Good evening, everyone. As a preliminary matter, this is Larry Murphy, Chair of the Newbury Planning Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Peter Pecos.
Yes.
George Morris.
Yes.
Woody Knight.
Yes.
Mary Stone.
Yes.
And town staff, when I call your name, Martha Taylor, Planning Director.
Yes.
And Kristen Grubbs, Assistant Planning Director, Assistant Town Planner, excuse me.
Yes.
So for anticipated speakers on the agenda, we have Michael McNiff.
This is Bob Griffin. Michael has been delayed getting here this evening. I think he's going to try to get on by his cell phone, but I'm prepared to speak.
Okay, Bob, thank you.
Yep.
And Emily Ennis. Is Emily with us yet?
Yeah, she'll be logging in close to 8 when she's scheduled. If we wrap up earlier, I'll let her know.
Very good. Thanks, Martha. And Steve Sawyer.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. So this July 19th, 2023 open meeting of the Newbury Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which extends the Governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025. This order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Newbury Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the Planning Board's agenda, which can be found on the town's website and which identifies how the public may join. You may join by going to http://zoom.us and entering meeting ID 832-714-13056 or by calling 1-929-205-6099 US, New York, and entering the meeting ID number when prompted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference. The meeting is also being broadcast live through local access cable channel 9 on Zoom and at www.tnctv.org, and the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Meeting materials were provided to the board members prior to the meeting for review. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak and if needed, share information to the screen. Please state your intention after you've been called. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will go down the list of board members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, for all attendees except board members and staff, please remember to mute your computer using a mute button or your phone, *6 to toggle mute or unmute when you are not speaking. Please use earbuds or earphones with tablets and cell phones. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If board members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself when you wish to speak. For public comment, there will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during public hearings. After board members have spoken, I will afford the public an opportunity to comment and/or ask questions as follows. I will see questions and comments through the Zoom raised hand function. For video conference participants to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the gray hand that appears. Please ensure your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You may rename yourself by using the More function next to your name. For telephone participants to raise your hand in a Zoom meeting, hit *9 on your phone keypad. I will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they are listed, which is determined by the order in which people click on the raised hand function. Each participant will be called on to provide his or her name and address, then ask a question or make a comment. I will afford the applicant, participant, or his or her representative the opportunity to reply. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. I will then continue down the list of those in the raised hand column and again afford the participant, applicant, or representative an opportunity to speak. Should there be a physical or electronic submittal of questions or concerns, they will be noted for the record. And again, the participant, applicant, or representative will be afforded the opportunity to speak if the issues raised have not yet been addressed. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So now it's 7:05, so we can't get into the public hearings just yet. So we'll move on to the agenda. First item is liaison reports. Martha, do you have anything from the select board?
Sorry, I'm actually drawing a blank here.
I'm sorry.
I said I'm drawing a blank here from the last meeting.
Okay. Well, you were away anyway, weren't you?
They didn't have one last week.
Oh, okay. All right, well, we can pass on that. If anything comes to mind, you can address it during your planner's report. For the ZBA, their regular monthly meeting is tomorrow night. They have one item on the agenda. It's a public hearing for an alteration or renovation of a pre-existing commercial restaurant or store into a single-family dwelling with an increase in height. And that's for the property at 134 Northern Boulevard. The applicants are Brian and Helen Buer. And that's all I have for the ZBA. Woody, anything from conservation?
Nothing that pertains to us, just a few things going on the island and a few septic systems. And a few, I forget the term, a few problems that they're addressing. Cottage Road and another down the island, but they'll be resolved. So that was it.
Okay, thank you, Woody. And Martha, back to you, MVPC. Anything?
No meetings again until September.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you reported that last time, I think. Thank you. Still got a few minutes before we get into the public hearings. So I can read the June 2023 Planning Board Financial Report for payrolls and invoices authorized. So payroll warrants for the planning director and assistant planner were authorized PR 23-25 for the pay period ending 6/3/23, PR 23-26 for the pay period ending 6/17/23, and PR 23-27 for the pay period ending 6/30/23. For planning board expense invoices, we have Verizon Wireless Planning Board iPad 6/22/23, MVPC HPPP, I assume that's Housing Production Plan Update Community Contribution 6/13/23. For Minuteman Press and postcard mailing and printing for the master plan 6/22/23, and Kristen Grubbs employee expense reimbursement 6/30/23. And that is the financial report. Still got a few minutes. Is there anything else we can?
You want me to start on the planner's report?
If you're prepared to, Martha, sure. You've got about 6 minutes. That'll be enough
Okay.
time.
Yeah, it shouldn't take that long. Actually, going back to the select board meeting, their last meeting was actually on the June 27th. And the municipal building committee gave its update final report at that meeting. There was discussion at that meeting about the Sunset Club entertainment license. And appointments to the Open Space Committee and the Recreation Committee. Those were the major items. For us, I have a couple of administrative notes for our finance department. We are required, or the board is required, to sign the authorization for Larry and Pete to sign invoices and payroll. So I will get that ready and put that out in the box for signature. The other thing that we need to do annually is provide updated signatures to the Registry of Deeds for all of the planning board members with their terms when the terms expire, and also who is authorized to sign A&R plans. So I will put that out for signature as well and let you all know when that's ready. A couple of other things, we're having discussions with one engineer about development of a parcel, potential development of a parcel on Hanover Street. We've got a meeting Monday morning for that. And Green MVPC, we've got a couple of meetings coming up. One is on the energy reduction plan, which has been prepared by them to help us achieve green communities designation. And they're also holding what they're calling transportation office hours with each of the communities. And we have a meeting scheduled with their transportation staff to talk about some of the critical, transportation issues in Newbury. So we can report back on those at the next meeting. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, thanks, Martha. We still have a few more minutes before 7:15. I don't know if we have enough time to talk about we have 3 sets of meeting minutes on the agenda for June 7th, June 21st, and June 29th. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those?
Yes, I have.
I'm seeing a lot of
No.
nodding, no. We prepared to move, well, Pete, let me start with you. Are you prepared to go forward with these?
I am.
Yeah, and George,
I am not.
you're not. Okay, do you want to put these off until the next meeting?
I would I would make a motion that we review minutes at the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
Second.
Thank you,
Okay.
George. Any discussion? All right, then Pete, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes,
George, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Woody, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes,
Mary, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes, yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we'll hold those until our next meeting. And we still got 3 minutes to go.
Yep. Going through this at a good clip.
Yeah. Well, you know me, I'm usually jumping ahead at 7:05 to get into the public hearing. So you've trained me finally, Martha.
The electronic kick under the table.
Yeah. One of my grandkids gave me a book of dad jokes for Father's Day. And maybe I should bring it along for times like this. Well, some of them are pretty bad, I have to say. I have a terrible memory for them, though. I need the book.
I was going to say, do you have any favorites?
No, I have a terrible memory for jokes. I don't know. For some reason, I just can't seem to retain them. But almost.
when you don't laugh at them, when you don't retain memory for them, then you can laugh at them when you hear them again.
That's right, Woody. Yeah, they're all new, always new.
I remember a lot of lines from Seinfeld, but they probably shouldn't be repeated here.
Yeah, probably not.
The funniest show I ever.
It was hysterical.
It is falling down funny. I still have the lines.
And it's funny the way people still to this day, they still repeat the catchphrases and
Oh, God. It was great. It was.
Okay, well, the good news is it's 7:15, so we can get into the public hearings. The first public hearing we have on the agenda is the continued concurrent public hearings on 170 Orchard Street, map R20, lot 43A, owner applicant, the estate of Louis Bulgaris, care of Diane Yurkovich, continued from 6/21/23. And as I said, there are two concurrent public hearings, one for a definitive subdivision plan application for Fields Way, 170 Orchard Street. And the other is also for a common driveway special permit application serving the two lots on the proposed Fields Way subdivision, 170 Orchard Street. So Bob, do you want to, you're prepared to get started, or do you want to wait?
No, I'm prepared to get started. I noticed that Mike McNiff is connected by phone. He's the 9062 number that you see there. And I'm going to bring up my screen if that's okay.
Yeah. So I understand we have a new plan or an amended plan.
A couple of minor changes were requested at the last meeting, and I can go through those quickly here. This was the plan at the beginning of June, and if I scroll the screen, you're going to see a couple little blips on there, and I'm going to zoom in just to see what they are. But we had added some. So here's the cul-de-sac area in June. Here we are in July. You see, we've added some street trees. We added 4 street trees in the vicinity of the houses on lot 1 and 2. We sort of felt that lots 3 and 4 were just too far away from the roadway. It didn't really make sense to put trees out there. And then there'll be landscaping associated with the construction of all of these houses, you know, foundation plantings and the like as well. So that was the response to the street tree question. A request was made that we widen the width of the access pathway coming off the cul-de-sac here. It was 14 feet before, and Greenbelt asked that we make that 15 feet. So that's been picked up in a slightly wider pathway there. There was a request about the location of the agricultural access easement. I'm going to back up again here. That pertains to this area out here, and that'll show up on a plan. I'll show you in one minute on that. There was some requests to widen the entrance a little bit and to push it a little closer to the property line with 168. And so here's the revised plan. You can see that we've also moved the driveway a little bit at house number 168 as compared to where it was previously. There's the previous version. There's the current version. So really just some minor changes in the layout. And then the last thing was that easement line. There was a request that we make sure that there's at least 15 feet between the edge of the woods and the easement. And so that required modifying this line right there. So that was, I think, a request of Greenbelt also. So we've accommodated those requests. A request came in today that we update the aerial photographs to be consistent with those changes. And so this is the updated aerial photograph. You can see the entrance is a little closer to 168, and there's that changed easement line out there by the woods. So that sort of, I think, summarizes our plan changes. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Bob. Actually, before I turn to the board members, let me turn to Martha and Kristen, because I know you had a site walk out there with Greenbelt. Maybe you could bring us up to speed on that, please.
Sure. We met out on the site with Maggie Brown and Dave Rimmer from Greenbelt and Michael McNiff on Friday, June 30th, and walked the site. Maggie had the aerial on her iPad and was able to sort of geolocate where we were standing. So that was very helpful to really get an understanding of the plan in relation to what's on the ground. As Bob noted, there were several suggestions that came out of that conversation, including widening the access easement on lot 4, and also where it comes into the agricultural parcel A, across 3 and 4 from the turnaround at the cul-de-sac. Maggie said that they would be responsible for drafting the lot 3 and 4 access easement documents and circulate those for review. And we also discussed getting a homeowner's acknowledgement of active agricultural property, which Michael McNiff has noted will be incorporated into the documents. And one thing that we did not discuss, but came up subsequently in an email that Maggie sent, was the kind of request or suggestion that right of way for public access be afforded to the property in the event that in the future it will no longer be used for agricultural purposes. So the thought was that a small parking area for the public could be considered and some mowed paths through the fields. We also had a discussion, Kristen and I had a discussion with Maggie this afternoon and talked a little bit more about the considerations for public access to this parcel as a possibility in the future. And some additional suggestions regarding the agricultural easement, which I know that she has emailed to Michael McNiff. So I don't know if Michael will be prepared to address any of those tonight. They involve sort of clarifying where the agricultural access would be along the access easement on lot 4, and also some additional concerns about access around that clump of trees that's on the far left of the plan that you're seeing, and some thoughts that perhaps if the house location on 4 and the end of the common driveway are moved a little bit sort of upwards on the plan, that might afford better access going forward.
Okay. Bob, any response to Martha's comments?
Well, I guess first I would ask if Mike is he able to speak, because I know I did see his phone connected at one point.
Oh, sure, please.
Yeah, I've unmuted. Thank you. Thank you, Martha. That's pretty accurate on those requests. And I did talk to the attorneys and to the owners about the property. Yeah, I think one access point at the beginning of the cul-de-sac is just a safer, better way, and it doesn't bring more traffic up to lot 3 or 4. And I thought improving that access was sufficient, kept that heavy traffic going up that way, accessing to the rear of lot 4. Just was impractical. And it wasn't anything that we don't want to do for Greenbelt. A parking lot opening up to the public, the attorneys really forewarned about that. I know the board didn't want much traffic on the right of way. I know the neighbors were concerned about lights, but it's also the responsibility of the association. They take in all the liability, they take in all the risk. Having a parking lot in the middle of that wetland just didn't make any sense to us. I think it invites too many problems. We can think of the worst things that happen where people are coming up at their wish. And it isn't really, it's an agricultural piece that we're happy to give to the Greenbelt. I don't see trails. We walked the property, and I think everybody would admit that you sunk up to your ankles. So trails and bikes that are really don't lead to anything other than other wetlands. I don't think, I know the attorneys don't want to do any public access, and I think it has merit not to do it. I think for the agricultural use or the conservation use, I think it's great. But that's the way they felt.
So it sounds like you're at odds then with Greenbelt on that point.
Well, we did talk to other backups. The Essex Agricultural, which owns the property, agreed that if Greenbelt didn't want to do it, they would take stewardship over that and would work with Mr. Herrick, pardon me. And if Mr. Herrick didn't keep it as an agricultural use, we could always go back to a conservation use. I don't want to turn the Greenbelt off, but given public access on a private way puts a lot of liability on everybody who owns out there. And I just don't think that's the goal.
Well, I mean, we have seen that in other subdivisions. Let me turn to the board members. Martha, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we go to the board members?
Not at this time.
No. So Peter, do you have any questions or comments?
First, I want to thank everyone for continuing to participate in this, and I'm glad that there are continued discussions with the applicants in Greenbelt. I think it's very healthy. And I think I appreciate where Greenbelt's coming from, because if the land were not to be used for agricultural use, then having a secondary or a backup plan, I can appreciate where they're coming from. And I know that we did something similar to this, and Martha, you can help me out with this if I misspeak, but it was 14 Coleman, correct?
Yeah, 15 Coleman Road.
And we had a kind of a similar sort of thing. But in that particular situation, it was an OSRD, and there was a trail system that was already in existence. But the parking situation was resolved with very simply 3 little spots in the cul-de-sac, which really worked very nicely. It doesn't encourage a lot of volume, and in that particular situation, that's an existing trail system. So I think that this is kind of like a plan, if I understand correctly, where Greenbelt's coming from, a plan B, if in fact this were not used as agricultural land, and hopefully it'll continue to be used as agricultural land. And you know, 10 years from now, if something changes, I can see where their position would want to allow for that public access. And I know that the board is always trying to promote what's in the public's best interest for that. So I think I understand where they're coming from, and I think maybe this is something that probably is best left with continued discussions between the applicants and Greenbelt. Hey, Bob, let me ask you this question. Thank you for widening the drive entrance. Let's see, I want to get my directions correct. Would that be on the east side of the Fields Way?
That's correct, yep.
So let me ask you this. Can it also be widened on the west side so that the entrance, you know, allows for just, again, a little easier gradual left turn when you're coming up Orchard? So if you're coming east, so that's west to east on Orchard, coming up that hill, it allows for a more gradual transition, because it looks like you have, and I'm not sure if that would interfere with the swale that you have for drainage, but can it be pulled back and widened at the mouth anymore? Do you think that's feasible?
So I really don't want to widen it any further. I think there's more than ample room to make the left-hand turn from Orchard into this roadway. And I also would point out, we have that telephone pole that is going to get moved, but at this point it hasn't been moved. So this line that we've drawn there is, above the existing telephone pole. There'll be more room to widen it out after that happens. But I think there's just plenty of room to get from, the west to eastbound side of Orchard into this new way.
Right. I'm trying to get around your waiver here. I'm trying to help you out. So that's all the only comments I have. Thanks.
So the waiver refers to the radius on the property line, not the radius on the curb line or the edge of the driveway.
I understand.
And we can't do anything on the property lines because they're already created.
I understand.
Okay. And in regards to the open space discussion, it occurs to me that, this is kind of a last minute change from the Greenbelt discussions that we've had to date. And I think that, at some point down the road, 5 years from now, whenever if it happens that the agricultural use is suspended or stopped, then I think that, Greenbelt at that point can deal with the homeowners who, will be in the subdivision at that point in time about, trying to make arrangements for public access that's satisfactory. But, I think at this point in time, it is difficult to accept the public access option.
If I could, Larry, then I think I'd come back with that, Bob. If you think it's difficult now, I would think it'd be next to impossible to have people down the road agree to something like this.
Yeah.
If it's part of the plan as a contingency, it kind of makes sense to me. So again, that's my thoughts. Thanks very much.
Okay.
All right, thank you. George, do you have anything?
Yes, in the discussion about wetlands and the farming area and access to it by the public, I don't know how much wetland there is because I haven't walked the property. but I'd be concerned about having parking within it, having a lot of walking into space to get up to the area, going through or over wetlands. That's my comment.
So I can answer that a little bit here. In the graphic that we have up right now, there's sort of a white or sort of, light line here in the middle of the agricultural field. And actually, you wouldn't necessarily know this. You couldn't tell by walking out in the middle of a cornfield that there's this distinction between uplands on the right side of that line and wetlands on the left side. But the topography of the land and the soil conditions are such that much of that agricultural land is actually jurisdictional wetlands. Now, they're allowed to farm on it because the Wetlands Protection Act allows this historic agricultural activity to continue. But once the agricultural activity stopped, that wetland becomes a wetland like any other in town, and you can't disturb it. There's also some other wetlands, like here on the west side of the property line here, and further to the back of the property, there's some similar wetlands, both in the agricultural area and in wooded areas.
That answer your question, George?
Yes, it does, very much so. I think it requires some more consideration by Greenbelt and the owners and perhaps town staff just to make certain we're reasonably heading down the right path instead of making a shot in the dark without having some real planning for the future for the public use and access. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, George. Woody, do you have anything?
Well, I agree with both what Peter and George have said. And also, when it comes to Greenbelt, they want an option B, and I understand that as well, because if the land's not going to be tilled for one reason or another in the future yearly, if it's not tilled yearly, Greenbelt will want to put it to grassland for habitat and for people to enjoy. So some sort of a public access point for public access, I think, is appropriate in this situation. And that's all I have for now.
Yeah, thank you, Woody. Mary?
Larry, can I ask Woody a question?
I don't see why not. He's willing to answer.
Woody, are you talking about, can you be a little more specific? You're talking about a buffer zone? Some kind of a buffer zone? Are you talking
No,
about?
I'm speaking of, like, if in the future, Mr. Herrick retires or something happens and they're not growing corn in there anymore,
Right,
they're not gonna want those field areas that are being used, they're not gonna want those just fallow with weeds. They'll want to put it back to some sort of grassland, or put it to grassland and offer it to someone else to use.
okay,
And a lot of Greenbelt's pieces are grassland. This is a little unique to them to have. I think, so I'm speaking for myself, in my opinion, but I think this situation's a little unique. Whereas other places, they have grassland and they have a mowed path and people use the mowed path through the field, and a farmer comes in and harvests the grass and goes on his way. So in the future, it might not always be corn, is what I'm getting at. And that I agree with what Peter was saying, and Greenbelt saying an option B would be, they want an option B. If I'm saying that right, if I'm saying that wrong, someone please correct me, but an option B would be good and have access for the public to enjoy it.
Okay,
If it
thanks.
was grassland.
That answer your question, Mary?
Yes, thank you.
Anything else, Mary?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
Oh, okay. So Martha, have we received any written comments or questions?
No, we haven't.
And do we have any members of the public with raised hands?
Scott and Valerie have raised their hand.
Okay. Scott and Valerie, you're muted, but you have the floor.
Yep, sorry about that. Had to find the mute button. Scott and Valerie, 173 Orchard Street. As you can see, directly across from the entrance to Fields Way. I mean, the discussion about a public access, I mean, that's definitely concerning. We already, have a lot of traffic here. We've been very concerned about the added traffic going in and out of that street. Our driveway is already kind of a blind driveway of people coming up Orchard Street. And then to add a public access in there so we could have actually potential for more cars coming and going. Definitely very concerned about that. I wouldn't not be in favor of that. We, looking to keep this a nice, quiet residential area and not add added traffic that we don't need.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Just to be clear, as I understand Greenbelt's position, is they're just looking this as a contingency or backup plan in the event that for whatever reason the property is no longer in agricultural use. But do we have another hand up, Martha?
Yes, I think
That
it's,
was me. That's me, Martha. I didn't want to interject. I just was concerned. Bob mentioned that we're surrounded by the wetlands. So if there were trails like Coleman Road, I could see accessing to other trails. This accesses to nothing. And it's not just the neighbors. Mr. Zeller's not on and Peter Mack's not on. They were the ones who brought up most of the concerns about traffic to begin with. But how do we indemnify the association or the private way from any public acts or the maintenance problems or the liability problems? Greenbelt, I don't think is going to be able to do that. And I just think it's a big ask for something that I don't think they'd be using or really have practical use for. I don't know where those trails would lead to other than further wetlands.
Okay, well, I think they're looking for options, but I think go back to Peter's original point that you need to probably should be having this discussion with Greenbelt. As you know, keeping this property open in agricultural other uses was very important to the board, and in fact is the justification for the public interest, if you will, for granting the waivers. So I think you need to have further discussion with Greenbelt. I think I see another hand up though, Martha.
we do, David Powell.
Okay. David, you're muted.
Okay, I should be on now, I think.
You are.
You are.
Just a couple of comments in regard to Greenbelt Properties and how they generally proceed as a member of Greenbelt. I think the public access issue here is one that is sort of overblown in the sense we're not going to have a stream of cars going in there. I doubt at any point. I think what they're simply looking for is the kind of thing that they have used in a number of properties in Newbury and West Newbury, where you simply have a small graveled area which might accommodate up to perhaps 2 vehicles. Generally speaking, I think you will find that Greenbelt members who would be aware of this, because it will be listed in the Greenbelt Properties Guide, are not the kind of people you have to worry about in this kind of circumstance. So I would just suggest that talking about liability and increased traffic, I understand why people have those kind of reactions, but I think they're somewhat overblown in this circumstance. And the point that Woody raised is very germane in that if the agricultural uses changes so that you get acreage which is much more inviting to a much broader wildlife population, then in fact it becomes of much greater interest to the kind of people you have as membership in Greenbelt and other conservation organizations for that matter. So I think they are essentially looking for there to be able to be a conversation should that change occur. I don't think they're looking to hold anybody's feet to the fire about this. My other question would be, is this an OSRD or not?
It is not.
It is not, okay, but it does have a number of the common driveway, etc., is done with waivers, so based on the agricultural use of the rest of the property? Is that the idea?
Well, the idea is before we can grant any waivers, we have to find that there's a public interest in granting the waivers and that it's not
Right.
consistent with
Yeah.
the purpose and intent of the subdivision control law. And in this particular case, the public interest is in preserving all of this acreage in either agricultural or some other open space.
Yeah, so it's very much like an OSRD, though it doesn't actually qualify or has decided not to. So I would think the public interest is very much a presence here in relation to, I think, what is a modest request on the part of Greenbelt. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for your comments. It does very much look like an OSRD. I agree with you, but technically it's not. And well, Bob, did either of you want to add anything more to this conversation? I think what you're hearing from the board is you need to work out your differences with Greenbelt.
Okay.
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 May
Go
I,
ahead.
may I just add something? Pete mentioned the Fieldstone Lane Coleman Road project earlier, and it is similar in the sense that that is a private way, is to be maintained as a private way. And in granting, conveying the open space parcel to Greenbelt, they also conveyed the rights of Greenbelt and the public to pass and repass over that private way to access the open space. So I would see that as being a similar situation here. And I think also to the point that David just made, the Greenbelt properties, there's one right around the corner from me that has a very small gravel parking area. I never see more than one car there that goes back through mowed field and then back into woodland and wetland area. So I think that this would be very similar to that, but actually on a larger scale, because you'd have the mowed fields as well as the woodlands that's at the northern end of the property. And you know, if there were to be a couple of parking spaces, I think, you know, they certainly would not need to be built in the wetlands. So.
Could I say something?
Who's that? Woody? Yes, please.
Yes. You could make a 6 or 7 mile loop in the vicinity of this proposed project and see multiple Greenbelt properties with small gravel parking lots and not see any cars in them, or see 1 or 2 cars. And I agree with what David was saying. And also Coleman Road's right around the corner. Go look at what they did there. And so you can get an understanding of where Greenbelt's, what they're talking about and what's gone on in the past with some places and the parking situations. It's not a huge lots. They're all small gravel lots with minimal use. And you can get a list of the properties and literally do a loop and pass at least 5 of them. They're all in Newbury and West Newbury.
Thank you, Woody.
Sorry.
And Larry, if I could,
Yes, please.
that's kind of one of the beautiful, unique features of this community, is we have residential existence, and then we have the ability to preserve and appreciate its heritage. And I think that's also something very unique. There aren't a lot of communities where you have what Woody just described. So continuing along with promoting that is beneficial.
Thank you, Pete. All right, just to switch gears a little bit here. I think we probably exhausted this topic for tonight. But as far as the modifications to the plan, putting aside the discussion with Greenbelt, you all comfortable with these modifications? Anyone have any issues? Pete, you good?
Other than the things I've already expressed.
Okay. George, anything further on the modifications?
No further. I'm good with them.
Woody?
I'm good with them for now. I do see where the easement along 3 and 4 could be tight, but for farm equipment, if things need to get through there off the pavement, but Other than that, I don't see too many problems with the modifications that you've explained to us.
Mary, anything?
I'm all set. Thanks, Larry.
The other big issue, I think, is all the legal documents. Someone remind me, what's been submitted so far? Anyone?
So, well, so far we've gotten a draft of it's a homeowner's document, a driveway and utility maintenance document. There was something which looked like the beginning of a draft. There was a reference to a first paragraph. And then there've been a couple of drafts of the easement for the benefit of 168 Orchard Street.
Oh, and I don't think that's everything though, is it? That we need.
So for the common driveway, we need to have basically deed language, their deed requirements, and we need to have draft language for that to be reviewed by town council. And also an owners and association agreement for the owners lots of the lots served by the common driveway. And the document that was submitted actually not quite sure addresses all of those.
Okay, so
All of those issues. And it kind of indicates that all 4 property owners would be responsible for the common driveway. I think typically it's the 2 properties that are being served by the common driveway. And there need to be, clear rights and responsibilities that are laid out.
Okay, so where, Bob or Michael, where are we at in getting these documents together in the form that we can submit them to town council for review?
So my recollection is that we did provide the town with these documents in anticipating that we would get some review and comments back from town council. So I guess, to the extent that Martha has some comments on it, we're glad to receive those. But if there's some other comments from town council, we'd like to receive that as well. And we're happy to, modify the documents.
Well, if I may, I think they probably need to have another round. We still do need to get the deed, the draft deed language for the lots 3 and 4 for the common driveway. And I think some things need to be clarified. And I believe at the last meeting also, it might have been Michael indicated that some revisions might need to be made, but I might be misremembering that.
Yeah, no, we can fine tune all of those easements in relatively short order. We were just waiting for sort of a final plan so that if they were included, and certainly they remain in the draft, can be attached to them for the subdivision plan. So that'll be the only thing that'll be missing, will be the recording documentation. But I'll get that to you at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, I think
All
the
those-
sooner you can, my suggestion would be that you talk with Martha or Kristen and come to an understanding of what's missing yet and what needs to be, and maybe get the package to town council at some point. Martha, does that make
Yeah,
sense?
We can take care of that. We can take care of that.
Yeah,
as soon as they seem to be in proper order, we can certainly send them on to town council. Again, based on the conversation that we had with Maggie Brown today and her follow-up email to Michael, there are some additional suggestions on the agricultural access, which they see as beneficial both to the property owners and also to anybody who might be farming this property, which could involve a few tweaks to the property boundaries for lots 3 and 4, or house location. So, Michael, I don't know if you've had a chance to review those.
I did not, Martha. I was away, and so I apologize. But I'll look at them tomorrow. A house relocation or a movement of a house is, I don't think, a problem.
okay. Well, I'll leave you to, we're giving you some homework, I think, is someone has suggested in the past. So I think you need to talk to Greenbelt, and you need to get together with Martha and make sure we're all on the same page about what documents need to be submitted and approved by town council.
Larry,
Yes.
if I could, Martha, what was the one component that the police chief was concerned with regards to common driveways, which are issues that they've bumped into, just so that that language is put into place? And I forget what that was.
I think that really goes back and goes to the responsibilities and rights of each of the property owners to the common driveway. She's seen a lot of disputes between people who, you know, are sharing a common driveway and have different interpretations of what their rights and responsibilities are. And she just wants to make sure that they are very clearly laid out. As she said, one of the most common calls they get are for common driveway disputes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, any other comments? George, anything further?
None, thank you, Larry.
Woody, anything further?
No, just everything I said earlier about looking at other greenbelt properties in the area, because you can really come up with some great ideas to accommodate
and
everything.
Mary, anything further?
No,
No,
no, sorry. thank you.
I do see one hand up, Steve Mangione.
Hi, Mr. Chair. I've got a question. After hearing a lot of discussion about parking for 2 or 3 cars and Peter's comment about viewscapes, landscapes, and one of the nice things about living in the town is being able to take them all in. And given what I recall reading in the draft master plan, where there was a lot of discussion about bicycles, I'm wondering whether the board would like to comment on whether there needs to be consideration of not only a limited parking spot, but also a spot where bikes could be parked so that people could get off their bike and enjoy the viewscape. And again, I'd just be interested in hearing what the board has to say about that. Thank you.
Well, anybody have any comments on that? I think oh, go ahead, Peter. Luke, do you want to say something?
I think what, you know, this whole discussion that we've been having with Greenbelt, and thank you very much for your comments, Steve, is kind of this, I don't want to say a contingency plan, but if something were to change from agricultural use. And so I would leave it basically to, and I appreciate what you're saying because I encourage biking and I am a biker. I leave it to the applicant and to Greenbelt to work out those details and let Greenbelt be the steward of that aspect of it. At least that would be how I think the direction I would kind of suggest.
All right, thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
All right, now, right now, we're under a deadline of August 1st for a decision, which obviously that's not going to happen. Are you open to a further extension?
Yes, I think a limited extension would be fine. What would you have in mind? Couple of weeks?
Well, realistically, being summer and vacation season and getting people on this, I don't know what you'd be comfortable with, but I would think 6 to 8 weeks might be reasonable. And that might even be a little, optimistic to tell you the truth. Well, it depends on how quickly you can come to terms with Greenbelt, how quickly you can get those documents together so we can get them out to town council.
Mike, I don't know if you're still available to chat at this point, but I think 30 days, I can get you today, Larry, but after that, we'd have to talk to Mike, I think.
Well,
Excuse me, Larry, I apologize. Could we, 30 days is a better goal. And I only say that because there's a lot of different attorneys on both sides that have to be corralled and educated. I know it's been a long process and we're all working hard to get the same goal, I think. It's just, I know we've been extended for 2 months the first time. Is the second meeting in August too aggressive? I mean, we're talking to Greenbelt and getting the easement documents together. Is that too aggressive a goal?
I think a little bit because then we have to, once all of that's together, we've then got to draft a decision. I mean, I don't have any problem with you coming back in August, but I just want to be realistic that we, you know, getting it done by the end of August may not be realistic. But I mean, if you want to go to let's see, well, September 1st is a Friday. You know, we want to go to the end of August. Martha, would that work, at least be something we can work towards?
To actually file a decision with the town clerk.
Yeah,
So in order for that to happen, the board would have to,
Act to next meeting.
act well, probably at the second meeting in August at the latest, unless it wanted to schedule a special meeting on the 23rd. And then get the decision finalized and signed. September 1st is a Friday, so the offices are closed, so we either have to aim for the 31st or else after Labor Day.
I'm just trying to avoid a situation where we might have to yet ask you for another extension, but
What is the
we
meeting,
can't
Martha, in
force a date on
September?
you either, so.
Yeah, no, I understand. What is the meeting in September, Martha, the first one after the Labor Day?
The first meeting in September is the 6th.
So is that's probably a fair time, right? I mean, that's Labor Day, but it's 2 days after Labor Day, right? So,
Yeah, it's 2 days after Labor Day, so if the board were to
so
say,
do we get an extension until September 6th? But maybe temporary talk about everything at the end of August to see if all our ducks are in order for September 6th?
Oh, yeah, I'm
How'd that-
anticipating, where I'm anticipating it'll be back on the agenda sometime in August.
Yeah, okay.
but I think even if that happens, say if the decisions are finalized and the board votes on the 6th, there still needs to be, some time for the board to actually, sign the
Record it,
decision.
yeah,
to the clerk,
yeah.
so.
Okay.
Say,
Yeah, we'll get the extension over to you. It may take me a few days to get it together, but I'll get the attorneys to sign it and we'll shoot for the 6th. And if we can meet at the end of August, we have everything in order, then it'll be, hopefully we'll have everything you need.
right, I mean, I would say actually the 13th would be safer if the board is going to, the outside vote on the 6th, and then to give time for the board to sign, since we're not, all in a meeting together. If the
We'll do
extension
it the 13th.
on the 13th.
Do it the 13th. That's fine.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your cooperation with that. And that said, now, when do we want for a continuance date on the public hearing? Martha, you want to do the first or second August meeting? Probably the second, huh?
Let's see, if we're talking about. Yeah, having some dialogue with Greenbelt. I mean, I guess it depends on how quickly all of that could happen and if there are going to be any plan changes that come out of that. With a house location or slight tweak to the layout of the common driveway. So the two meetings in August are,
I think the 3rd and the 17th.
it's actually the second and the 16th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Want to shoot for the 16th?
That's fine.
I mean, the second is only 2 weeks from today.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we continue this public hearing on both applications to the 16th of August.
At 7:15 PM via Zoom.
Yes.
And that motion is for both the definitive subdivision plan and the common driveway special permit.
Yes.
And do we have a second?
Second,
Second.
Thank you, Woody. Any discussion? Hearing none. Peter, how do you vote?
Yes.
George, how do you vote?
Yes,
Woody, how do you vote?
yes.
Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So it's unanimous. Thank you both. We appreciate your cooperation and we'll see you on the 16th and hopefully we can move this along.
Great, thank you again. Good night.
Thanks a lot. Good night.
Good night. Our next item on the agenda, the next public hearing is a new public hearing for 7 Bittersweet Lane, map U09, lot 21B, common driveway special permit application. The owner, David W. Foley Senior and Nancy J. Foley, and the applicant is Gage Foley. So this is our first public hearing. Woody, do you have the public hearing notice?
Yes, I do.
Could you read it into the record, please?
Yes, legal notice, Town of Newbury Planning Board, public hearing notice, common driveway special permit. Residents of the Town of Newbury and other interested persons, please note that on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023 at 7:15, the Newbury Planning Board will hold a public hearing virtually via Zoom to consider application submitted by Gage Foley for a common driveway special permit for widening and expansion of an existing common driveway serving 2 lots at 9 and 11 Bittersweet Lane, Newbury, Mass. To provide 1 additional driveway access to serve 7 Bittersweet Lane, assessors map U09 lot 21B, property owner David W. Foley Senior and Nancy J. Foley. The proposed common driveway expansion is shown on drawings entitled Common Driveway Zoning Plan for 7 Bittersweet Lane, Newbury, Mass. Dated June 21st, 2023. Prepared by Stephen Sawyer. And described in accompanying application materials. Copies of the application are on file with the town clerk and in the planning office, 12 Kent Way, Suite 101, Byfield, Mass. And are available for review during regular business hours. They may also be viewed on the planning board section of the town's website. For more information or to obtain a digital or hard copy of the application, contact the planning office by phone at 978-465-0862, extension 312, or by email at planningboard@townofnewbury.org. All persons interested or wishing to be heard relative to the proposed subdivision are invited to participate in the hearing remotely at the designated date and time from their computer, tablet, or smartphone at https://us.2web.zoom.us/j/8327-141-3056 or by telephone by calling 1-929-205-6099 US and by using meeting ID number 832-7141-3056, or may watch the meeting live on local access cable channel 9 or at www.tnctv.org. And this was Larry Murphy, Chair, Newbury Planning Board, published in the Newburyport Daily News on July 3rd and July 10th of 2023.
Thank you, Woody. Martha or Kristen, do we have proof of notification, tear sheets and green cards?
Yes, everything's been received.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. And so Steve Sawyer, are you going to make the presentation?
Yes, I will. Good evening, Steve Sawyer with GM2 Associates. I'm here. I think I saw Gage Foley on tonight. Probably looks a little tired. I think he and his wife just came home with a new child today. So
Congratulations.
yeah,
Wonderful.
That's great news.
a lot going on there. So the project, should I actually, probably best I share screen now.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to start with the Google Maps overview just to give you a the locus. So here's Bittersweet Lane. Here's the upper green. So Bittersweet Lane, at the end of Bittersweet Lane, there's an existing common drive that serves 2 of the 3 lots. There's 3 lots at the end of the road. I think Gage's grandfather had subdivided it back in, I think in 1999. This house was there, I think in 99. This house was built, I believe 15 or so, probably more than that now, 20 years or so ago. And the proposal here is to build, Gage is going to build a family home here for his wife and family off the common drive at this location. Currently, we've received approval from the Conservation Commission and order conditions for the construction of the, or for the widening of the common drive. But this common drive has been in existence. Actually, I'm gonna stop share on this and then jump to the, let's see, I'm gonna jump to the photos. Share. So this common driveway exists today. It services 9 and 11 Bittersweet. It's in good condition, very good condition. Although it's only, at this point, it's only 12 feet wide, and the regulations require it to require 16 feet. I believe the fire department went down and visited the site. They felt it, I don't believe they said it in the letter, but they felt it was adequate as is. But I think as far as what we were proposing was to bring it to the requirement of the common drive special permit. I don't believe, maybe it wasn't in place at the time. I don't believe there was a special permit granted for this driveway, although at the time of the subdivision, it was in place. There was a barn in the rear and then the house up top. So this has been in this way, or this common drive has been in existence for some time. You know, at the point now where Gage is looking to build his home, we're looking to bring it in compliance with, of course, we need to bring it in compliance with the special permit regulations. So as I said, we've received an order of conditions for the improvement here. Actually, I'll run down. So here's where it launches off the end of Bittersweet. It sort of launches off the very end of it. There's a driveway just to the right of this. I think it probably services, it's probably 13. It launches off the very end of Bittersweet. And as you work your way down, you see it curves around. Here's the driveway that splines off to 11. And then the driveway continues down to 9. And we're looking, the house is going to be built on the left side here of the common drive. And this is looking back out towards Bittersweet. As you can see, it's in very good condition. One of the comments from, I think one of the peer review comments was impacting the tree. There's a tree that could be impacted here. We need to widen this 4 feet, which is we just have 4 feet. It kisses the trunk. Maybe we can talk about how to handle that as we're looking at the plans. But as you can see, it's in very good condition. And we just be widening this to accommodate, to bring it up to compliance with the regulations, and then adding the third driveway to it. All right, so here we are looking at the plans here. So as you can see, Bittersweet, this is the end of Bittersweet. Bittersweet is about 18 feet wide. Can you see this? I jumped to a different PDF. Did the screen share jump also?
Yes.
I think you're good.
Okay, great. So Bittersweet is 18 feet wide, 18 foot wide road. So at the end of the road, the driveway for, I'm sorry, it's number 10. Driveway for number 10 launches off the end here, and the existing common driveway leaves Bittersweet at the very end also at an angle, and then runs up. As you can see, it runs up to, oh, sorry about that. It continues on to number 9, where there's actually a loop here at the end. And then this driveway runs up to number 11. So the proposal is to widen this, to bring it into compliance to the 16-foot width, and then bring the new driveway off the very end just before, these two driveways spline off a little bit beyond. So this driveway would leave the common driveway to the new home located at this location. So as I said, there is an order condition issued for the house and this improvement. So the final permit that we need for him to pull a building permit would be the special permit for the common driveway special permit. Also, we've received approval for the septic system for this lot. So that's where we are today. So the other item here, we'd provide a little bit of stormwater management, a drip edge on this side. Typically, another one of the comments from the peer reviewer was that it appeared that he said it appeared it was crowned. So what happens is down at this end, it is super elevated. At the first half, it is crowned. So probably, my detail showed it as being fully super elevated the entire way. Probably instead of sloping the driveway as you're looking, going down the driveway from right to left, what we would do is we just slope it off to the right, so maintain the crown here, and then there'd be a little bit of winding here. It would just flow off onto the grass there. So that's about it. It's a fairly, we hope that it's a fairly straightforward process here. At this time, we haven't done the documents, the easement documents for this project. We wanted to get through this first meeting, and then we engage an attorney to get those documents together in a timely manner and submit them for review, council for review. But I am showing the required easement. So this is the location of the easement, or the common driveway easement. So it's the full width required in the regulations. Actually, I'm calling out the meets and bounds on it. So if the board agrees that this is an appropriate size and shape for the easement, I'll get it to the surveyor, and we get a proper survey document together, and we get that with the language of the maintenance agreement between the three lots, and then also the access easement for the three lots. So I think that covers it. I think at this point, I'll just open it up to questions.
Have you submitted a written response to the peer review letter?
No, we just got that last week, or the end of last week. So I have not. There really wasn't, it was just, I think it was talking about this tree here. So one thing that, he thought about trying to add on one side and add to the other. So you'd add here, and then to get around the tree, you kind of kick it over on the other side. It becomes somewhat, construction wise and alignment wise, it's not optimal to be doing that. One thing that I think that might make sense in lieu of doing that, this edge of the pavement here against this large tree, it's going to be right up. It'll be very close, probably 8 inches from the trunk of the tree. And my thought is, in lieu of maybe just allowing us to provide a little narrowing here and then fill that gap with crushed stone that's drivable, so we're not impacting the root zone in that area, or the trunk at that area. So that would be one change, or in response to his comment about trying to shift the road to the left side here versus keeping it on one side. I'd like to propose that versus shifting the alignment. I don't know how the board would feel about that. You'd have a section that, we'd have crushed stone for the full 16 feet, but it'd probably be, 10 feet or, 5 feet either way. What I do is I just sort of bring a little semicircle in, fill it in with crushed stone to provide, to protect that tree. And then I think the other comment was the super elevation, which I would just end up, instead of super elevating this whole right side, I'd end up sloping it off to the right. I think those were the two major comments, the two substantial comments regarding the plan.
All right, thank you. Let me turn to the board members. Peter, do you have any questions?
No, but Steve, thanks for your presentation. What we see here is what the common driveway is. What we didn't see the, independent pre-existing driveway, which, I think we should just let the board have an opportunity to see what that looks.
Okay.
Yeah, just so
Okay.
we get an appreciation of the concept here.
Yeah. Okay. So I think as part of it, Martha had asked for if we were to build a driveway on its own, the way that I would propose it would be to launch off of Bittersweet here. There'd be an easement required, which could easily be achieved. An easement required from number 9. So that would keep us out of the wetland area to minimize any wetland impact. So we'd run down here around the septic system and around this way. So basically you're running a driveway. This would require a fair amount of disturbance, tree removal in this area. This area is fairly open. You know, the existing tree line kind of wraps this way anyway, but there'd be a substantial amount of disturbance and we're right up against the wetland. So this would be the driveway if the board wasn't inclined to grant the special permit for a common drive, for this common driveway, this would be the route that we would take.
Thank you, Steve, because I think that just helps explain the thought process of why you're going with the common driveway.
Yeah.
So do you mind popping that common driveway back up? Yeah. So Martha, I'm going to ask you a question. So we're going from a common driveway of 2 to now a common driveway of 3. Is that a common event in this town to do that with a common driveway?
I can't give you any indication of how many of those we have, but it is allowed under our zoning.
So that, yeah, great. That's the first question. The second question, which I was happy to find out, is that at the end of the Bittersweet, there's a fire hydrant. So we're within 200 feet of the entrance to the proposed driveway launching off the common driveway to get to where the house is projected to be. And I appreciate what you're saying, that the fire department was down to take a look-see as to how they felt about the access. And so we're going to 16 feet, expanding it to 16 feet. That's what's proposed right now?
Well, if we didn't have to do it, we wouldn't do it.
Gotcha. I got you.
To be honest.
You won't like where I'm going. Anyways, because I was going to try to say, could you sneak it to 18? Because what this does is, and Martha, help me with this. The fire code doesn't oversee common driveways of 3. Is that right? Or who oversees the safety component of the public safety interests of this?
Well, my understanding is that the Mass Fire Code, the fire department does not have jurisdiction over 1 and 2 family driveways for 1 and 2 family houses under the Mass Fire Code. So our common driveway regulations specify a width of 16 feet. So that's where Steve's coming from.
Yeah. One thing we have though, one thing I can note here is we have this 2-foot stone drip edge, which that's robust enough that you could, if need be, you could drive on it.
Okay, you get where I'm going. Yeah, so basically what you do is you're now kind of coming to almost 18 foot. So if there were any reason for any emergency vehicles to go down there, and if they needed to be passing, it would be snug, but it could potentially occur.
Yeah. And also that it's, one thing I've driven down there a fair amount, even in the wet, you can, the lawn it's not muddy at all. You can actually sort of creep off onto the grass to get around. Never had an issue, but like you said, Pete, we do have the 18 feet, including this rock, the stone drip.
Okay.
You will not, there'll be no vegetation, no chance of mud or such.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Steve.
Yeah.
That it, Pete?
Yes, thanks, Larry.
George, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you. Steve, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Woody?
As well, thank you for the presentation. I don't have any questions at this time.
And Mary, do you have anything? Mary, are you there?
She's here.
Martha, can you tell if Mary's muted?
She's not muted. She's turned off her video. I don't know if she might have stepped away for a second, but she's not muted.
All right. Let's, where this is a public hearing, I want to give an opportunity to participate, obviously. I thought I saw a raised hand, Martha, while we're waiting for Mary. Was there someone out there who had a question?
Sarah Goldman has her hand raised.
Okay.
Hi,
Hi, Sarah.
I'm Sarah. I live at 10 Bittersweet Lane, otherwise referred to earlier as 13 Bittersweet Lane. We abut right at the top of the driveway, the fire hydrant, and the beautiful oak tree in question is in between us and the driveway. I am greatly concerned for the oak tree. I would love for it to stay there intact, and given as much space as possible. And personally, I do not want to see the driveway widened. I don't think many people in our neighborhood have, as a general topic of discussion. It has been regarded as a bit of a disappointment, but we understand what must be done for this, emergency services and things like that. But I definitely want to put my hand in and state that I'm very concerned about the welfare of the trees in general, but specifically the 31-inch over 200-year-old oak tree, that remain pretty much, in my view, at all costs.
Just to be clear, you're talking about the same tree that Steve was referring to earlier, of putting the
Yeah.
gravel around. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, have we got Mary back yet, Martha?
I'm back.
Oh, there she is.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
back, I'm back, sorry.
All right, Mary, I was just asking if you had any questions. We just had a member of the public speak out of concerns for preserving that oak.
Right, I just heard that, and
Yeah.
200 years is a long time, and I don't know. I sympathize with Sarah, and I understand that it is important. But the widening of the roadway, of the driveway, certainly makes sense as well. So, is there a solution to this? I have no idea. Does anybody have a thought on this? How about, the people who are winding the driveway, who were in charge of that? Have they consulted with attorneys? I mean, what can be done here to at least consider the tree if it's healthy? If it can't be, it can't be, but I'd like to have.
I don't understand that there's any intention to take the tree down or anything like that. Steve, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I think as I mentioned earlier, that the
Sorry about that, Steve.
can you hear me? I just got a thing saying my internet connection is unstable. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm gonna stop sharing, or can you still see me? Hello?
We can.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good.
Yes,
All right. Yeah, so this is a tree in question. So earlier I mentioned about at that look to that tree, that we would it would be right, it would be very close to the trunk of the tree, right up against it. My thought was that in this area was, in lieu of fully paving it, you come from the point of the tree, go either 8 feet or so, sort of go down, you can kind of sweep it in and make a nice little radius so it doesn't look bad. But then in the area up towards the trunk, we just carefully excavate and fill with pea stone or some sort of pea stone, which would be fine. The traffic runs, basically everyone drives down the middle of the road. It's for the 3 homes, so they're not driving on the edge. It would just be basically for any emergency purposes. So we'd maintain up around the trunk, we'd maintain a permeable surface right up against it. And I feel comfortable with some of the landscape architects that I do know, and see, they can weigh in, but I've looking at the grading around it, because right now it's not like we're cutting, you'll be removing some soil to get the pea stone in, but it's not like it's a huge cut right there. It's fairly level right up against the trunk, which is good news. So I think we could achieve 18 feet because you get the 2 feet on the other side of the stone. But I think that would circumvent or take care of the health of that tree in a long, in the long term basis.
Is the tree healthy, Steve?
Oh, yeah, look, I think it's in good shape.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, although I think the picture I had, I'd have to stop sharing. So when we're, see, stop share, and then I go, oh no, like that was, hold on a second, share. And here we go, share. And it is. Site photos. So it's this tree, see this large, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on a second, I'm jumping around here. Yeah. Okay, here we go. As the roadway goes by, so my thumb on the edge up towards the trunk, we'd end up using stone, stone. So we just sort of wrap around here with stone to keep the health of the root system of that tree healthy. Actually, Gage Gage, is that tree's in good shape? Is that true?
Trees in pretty good shape. The some of the lower branches are not looking as good. I'll be honest, I don't have a great sense for the health of the tree, but overall I'd say it's pretty good. I know some of the lower branches are a little bit more beat up, but it's in good health as far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about some of this as far as the legality of what's going on here. The only other thing that I'd add to this is that at the top of the hill there, my grandfather was the fire chief for Newbury and pretty directly considered all of that when he planned the site there with the 3 lots. The fire department came down and said they had no issues at all with emergency access, because as you can see in this photo he has open now, the left side and the right side of that drive stay completely dry. There's no wetness there. And it's existed as a 2 property common drive with no issues. Again, with the firefighters, they're up there, every week to see him with no concerns. So I'll be honest, I just didn't really know that this was even going to be something that we had to do to add this drive. We definitely want to take the minimum impact as possible. They came and visited and they said they had no issues with it, but it sounds like through the town code, it's going to be required to go to 16. The only other option, I mean, Steve looked at showed the other option that definitely has more impact going, some separate drive or something. And I don't know what else could be done besides not widening it, or I guess widening it only on the other side. I don't, Steve mentioned maybe a concern with that. That's all I can really think of on this. But again, I don't, it was a bit of a surprise to me to dig into it. So.
Thank you, Gage.
May I ask a couple of questions?
Please, Martha.
So Steve, what would it be possible actually to leave that side of the driveway alone, not disturb the tree at all, and sort of widen it on the other side for that portion so there's a little bit of a curve to it?
Yeah. Well, the other, I can speak to Gage. That's the other thought is, we're going to lose a cedar here, but if you just do all the work on the left side. That's the other option, is you end up kicking 6 feet. You'll end up, I got to see if we can make it. You end up with 4 feet of pavement and then the 2 feet of stone on the left side versus the right side.
Yeah, I'm just concerned because I think you need to put down, a gravel base for the driveway. So you're going to be cutting down, it's not just like you're taking asphalt right up to the trunk of the tree. You've got to cut down and put in a proper base and all of that stuff. I might suggest that you speak with an arborist.
Can I ask where the health of the tree, like out of curiosity, is that really something that, I don't know, that's a family tree on a family property, and there's tons of trees around there. Why is that? I don't know. I just don't know how that, I'm surprised to hear that this could stop because of the tree. I don't know what the.
I think it's not a matter of stopping it. It's a matter of trying to find a way to preserve it, especially, an old growth tree like that, certainly prefer not to take it down. Or, impact its health if there are alternatives.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I guess I still was thinking that what Steve was proposing was avoiding impacting. I don't know.
Larry,
just-
may I say something to Gabe?
Yeah.
Sure.
Or, sorry.
200 years is a long time for a tree, and actually an old growth tree like that increases property value.
I'm sorry, I must have mispresented I'm absolutely all for not touching that tree, not harming that tree in
Okay.
any way, shape or form. I just didn't think that we were. I gotta be honest. I spoke with Sarah, the neighbor, and told her directly I didn't think there was any intent to take that down, and definitely don't want to either.
Yeah.
In case I misconstrued
Right.
it.
Yeah, I'm not talking about taking it down, as Martha said, just finding a way to preserve it, and the best way for everyone involved in the process to preserve it. Possibly an architect and an arborist would answer the question, Gage.
Is
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought everyone else was frozen. I guess it was me.
I was too.
Now,
Everybody was.
Can I just ask generally, is it not at all possible to not have to widen the driveway, or because it is an existing common drive? Is there a reason that the town can't go that route or approve that route, or is?
It's just the common driveway special permit standard is 16 feet. I
Even
hear
with an
you.
existing-
If there was a way to
Okay.
to save you that additional expense without compromising public safety, I'd love to find it, but I don't know that there is.
Well, the only reason I point that out is just because it's existing, there's an existing there. That's where I guess it confused me more than.
Right.
If I could, Larry,
I'm sorry.
if I could, Larry. So Gage, you're coming forward with a request for, oh, I'm not sure if I'm working or not. Can you hear me? Larry?
Yep, you're
You're
okay.
okay, you're okay, Pete.
Yeah, you're coming before the board with a request for a special permit for a common drive. And so we have to adhere to what the requirements are. And then our concern, of course, is, it's public safety, whether it doesn't appear that should be in our interest, it's always in our interest. So we have to meet the standard, and then we want to make sure that the standard is appropriate. And what Steve is proposing with 2 feet of crushed gravel on the other side kind of really gives a lot of comfort to say, okay, if there was something that went on down there, if your baby needed, a resuscitation, and there was a fire, and there was an ambulance, and there was a fire truck, and things had to get moving, what would happen? And so we always look at worst case scenarios, because that's kind of the thing we want to do, because it's looking out for the public interest. So it's not that we're not empathetic to where you're at, Gage, not at all. We're just trying
Yeah.
to.
I understand that. I just don't know the process here, and we had the fire department visited, and they were like, yeah, totally fine. And that's where I was confused by it. So
Appreciate what you're saying. Thanks.
Martha, I don't see any hands. I didn't ask you if we had any written comments, Martha.
We haven't received any written comments from the public. I know that Kristen has received a few departmental comments.
Okay, Kristen, can you share those with us?
I think the comment that I'm prepared to share, and I apologize if I'm forgetting one, is the comment that has already been shared, which is the fire chief does not have jurisdiction over the common driveway. The conservation agent and Martha and I have talked because this project was before the Conservation Commission. So as Steve explained, the order of conditions, there is an order of conditions on the property. And the health agent also confirmed that they have their permit for the septic as designed.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. So board members, do we feel that a site visit would be helpful, or the alternative is just drive by on our own? Pete, your thoughts on that?
I'm fine with either direction, whichever the board decision is.
George?
Either way, Larry, I'd be happy to drive by anytime.
Okay.
With the
Woody?
permission of the owner, of course.
Yeah.
Either
Woody
way, either way, drive by or.
And Mary?
You know, I can go either way too. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably pretty straightforward. Gage, would there be any objection if the individual members, drove down at their convenience and just took a look?
Not at all. Just know you might get roped into a conversation with my grandfather, but you're
Okay.
it will be a pleasure.
anytime.
All right, well, let's leave it at that. So Martha, I guess the next step would be to pick a continuance date?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, any suggestions? Wanted, well,
Well, I guess one thing is, it sounds as if the board's comfortable in general with this proposal.
speaking for myself, yes.
And I
yeah.
think at this point, it sounds like we should move, at least that's how it seemed to go. I think at this point, it's probably, would it be prudent for us to put together the legal documents and get those in for review?
Speaking for myself, yes, I'd suggest you do that.
Sounds good, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then I want to talk to Gage about any, I think we have an agreement under the general cross section, and just update the plans, and get them submitted. And I would imagine that it probably, for all this to happen, the documents and such, it probably would, 2 weeks would be too quick.
Yeah, I would think so. And we still do need a written response from you, Steve, to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Written response and such, and then with the plans.
So I think we're probably.
So
talking-
I would imagine that second meeting in, the second meeting in August.
Martha, does that work for you?
Yes,
Yeah, so that's, I think we said it was the 16th, right?
that is the 16th, yes.
So do I have a motion to continue the public hearing until August 16th, 2023 at 7:15 PM via Zoom?
So moved.
Thank you, George. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mary. Any discussion? Hearing none. Pete, how do you vote?
Yes.
George, how do you vote?
Yes.
Woody, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Great. Thank you both, and we'll see you on the 16th.
Thank you.
Gage, congratulations to
And
you.
congratulations, boy or girl?
Wish you the best.
A little boy,
Yeah, first one.
second actually, and he's
Second.
healthy and
Well,
well as his
congratulations.
mother, so very good.
Wow.
Thank you.
Get some sleep, you guys.
We're gonna try, but we'll see. Thank you.
Chances are.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the master plan update. Is Emily with us?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Emily.
Good
Uh,
evening.
Well, let me turn it over to you then.
All right, fair enough. Well, first of all, just checking in how long the board would like to spend. I had a look at your agenda, so I know you're running a little late. I'm happy to spend as long or as little as you like, but I do know that there's some additional business after me. So I think we were originally scheduled for half an hour. I think my presentation probably take about 10 minutes maximum, if that's okay with you all.
Okay.
Sure, sounds good, Emily.
Might even take less. So first of all, thank you very much for having me on again tonight. Just for the record, my name is Emily Ennis, president of Ennis Associates, and I'm the consultant assisting the town with the completion of the master plan. We completed the public input process into the draft plan on July 14th. So that was last Friday. We had, just to remind all of you and anybody who might be listening, that we had a questionnaire online and also available to the public in print through the 14th. And during the period, I think it was open for about 3 or 4 weeks. During that period, we also had a public meeting that people could attend in person and give comments there. In addition, we had people who wrote in some comments, either mostly emailed them or emailed attachments. So what I'm going to show you briefly tonight is the appendix. I had mentioned at the meeting and prior to the public comment period that what we would do is we would take all of the public comments and put them in an appendix. It's a lot of material. I am not going to read every single word of it, but I am going to give you a guide as to what's in the appendix and why it's there. So there's a couple of things I want to say about it first before we get into it. One is that the public comments are obviously coming in different methods in response to different prompts. So for example, the questionnaire asked one set of questions, trying to get a sense for how people were prioritizing the draft recommendations, what they thought of the draft recommendations. There were some open-ended questions in there. And also, and very importantly, there was a set of questions there that were the same as the questions in the 2016 plan, so that we could, or the 2016 survey, so that we could compare who answered then with who answered now. People at the public meeting had the opportunity to also give some feedback on some of the same pieces of information, but of course had the freedom to ask any question they wanted. And naturally, the people who wrote in, and some of them spending a significant amount of time writing in, had the freedom to answer whatever they wanted because they wrote in, or question whatever they wanted because they wrote in. So there's a combination of information types in here because of those different prompts. So there's some qualitative information where people put dots or answered questions that were very specific, i.e. only giving them 2 choices. And so that quantitative information is something that can be recorded, but doesn't capture the nuance perhaps of some of the written information. There's the quantitative information of people answering the demographic questions, and I've set that up, as you'll see in a minute, to do a direct comparison. But then the qualitative responses, both particularly in the open-ended questions and the questionnaire, the comments at the public meeting, and the comments that people took the time to write in. That qualitative information is a little bit harder to analyze, but it's critically important for the planning board, for the select board, for any of the boards or committees or departments that may be involved in future implementation, to read those comments and understand what implications that might have. It's particularly interesting for somebody like me who has to read through all of them to see where some of the comments people are in agreement with and some of the comments continue to represent a difference of opinion on some of the aspects of the master plan. And that's only to be expected. A plan that tries to capture everything that could happen or should happen over the next 10 years is inevitably going to have points where people to continue to disagree or to have questions and concerns. And that is just part of the process. I would also like to add, for some of those questions and concerns, and looking at the implementation actions, many of them involve items that would continue to have further public input. And I think the qualitative responses in these 3 areas of comments are very important for providing guidance as to perhaps how to structure some of the conversations about future implementation, is understanding that there are still differences of opinion, understanding that people still have questions. How do you continue those community conversations? So with that, I'm going to share my screen and just show you what the appendix looks like, maybe call out some key moments. So I've set the appendix up as a PowerPoint presentation. This is obviously a PDF of that presentation, and Martha has this copy to put on the website. And I did that because I think it's going to be easier to read for a lot of people. It also means that the planning board yourselves, the select board, if they want to, can certainly extract some of the slides and use them in future presentations or future analyses when talking about implementation. So the first section is the questionnaire responses. I do want to call out that you ended up getting 113 responses to the questionnaire, to the online questionnaire, which is fantastic. And I put all the quantitative information up front so you can see how people found out about the master plan update. Kudos, by the way, to the town for deciding to mail out the postcard, because a lot of people got that information from the postcard, and about the same amount got the information from the email blast. So it's nice to know that these are still working. And we did ask how people received the postcard and put that in there. 62% of the people did read the master plan before commenting, 38% did not. I know we've got a few comments that it was a long plan. And then these are the same questions that I went over during the public meeting where we presented a sort of a partway through results. The percentages did shift a little bit. It was kind of interesting to watch that. So, you know, majority of people agree with the vision statement. And if you add in strongly agree, so 59% plus 19%, there's general agreement. And that's really good to hear, especially given the planning process and the length of it. Land use, I've just called out the top two of each of these. Community services, just note that there was a tie. Unless you have questions, I'm going to let you look at that yourself, but just again, note that the quantitative responses are first. Two more most important categories remained land use and natural resources, and I think that's important. And then what we didn't see at the public meeting was the qualitative responses. So I've put all of them here as they were written. Just to note, I did actually start to group these thematically, and then looking at them, so many people put multiple themes in a single answer. I felt that it was deeply unfair for me to make a choice and say, well, this belongs in this category and that belongs in that category. So I've left them as they were written by the people who put them in there. So you'll see there's a number of responses. Where I did summarize it is if people had no capitalized, not applicable, none, not really, for, do you have any additional information? I just grouped those together. Newbury and Byfield as one word answers I grouped together. Everything else is as was written. Preferred communication, town's website and email. So it's interesting that a lot of people responded to the survey because of the mailer. Some additional information about how people would like to receive information. And then these, starting with age, these are the demographics that are matched up with the 2016 survey. So you can see, for example, in green is 2023, or if you don't see between green and blue, the left-hand side of each column is 2023, the right-hand side is 2016. So you can see, for example, in 2023, the highest percentages were in the 35 to 49 range and the 65 and over range. But this is a little bit different from the profile in 2016, where we had more people in the 50 to 64 range. So, and you'll see those differences, not always differences. For example, in both years, the majority of people who responding did not have school-age children in the household. Interestingly, the majority in both cases was people who moved here from elsewhere more than 5 years ago. And then what attracted people to Newbury? And again, I think as you read through this, you're going to see there are a lot of common themes of why people moved to Newbury. So that's more useful qualitative information. Not much change in this respect in terms of where people live. Again, most of the people who responded were homeowners. Most of the people were employed or self-employed outside of Newbury. So those aren't very many changes between the two, but it does give you a picture of who's answering, at least who's answering online surveys, right? That's what that tells you among the 2 years. In terms of the public presentation, I provided the input from that in 2 different ways. One is Kristen and Martha together took comments. And so this first page is the summary, or took notes, the summary of their notes of what was asked during that period. And it's just the questions or the comments. It's not any form of response. And then I provided pictures of all of the boards. and summarize the text. So you can see, for example, where people put dots. I counted up how many dots there were and put the numbers so you could easily see them. And then I called out the top response in each, so it was easy to read, because I know this faint text from a photo of a board isn't going to show up well. So for example, we asked attendees to vote on their specific statement and the vision statement that they supported most. That is, of course, a different question from what was in the online questionnaire. And that's what I mean about different prompts at different times. In this case, the people who were in the room at the time felt that supports creative economic development that draws on its, meaning the town's strengths in agriculture and fishing, historical and natural resources, and the arts to enhance the vitality of the time and provides opportunities, including jobs for its residents. That was a priority for the people that were in that room at that time. Same thing throughout. So we had 3 boards of plan goals. We asked people to choose the most important goal in each section to them. So I've called out those goals section by section. Now, we did not watch people as they did their stickers. So it's perfectly possible that somebody put all 7 stickers on one, but I think most people entered into the spirit. So this just of the people in the room, how they put their stickers down. This gives an indication of what people thought were their priorities. And so I've called it out, the top one for each. Land use is using regulatory tools to balance preservation of resources with development and thinking about the vision for each area. For community services and facilities, developing a plan for the permanent location of municipal offices, again, among the people in that room. Economic development, we actually had a tie. So establishing local leadership on economic development issues, and back actually to the land use, ensuring new and existing development is complementary to the physical context of the different geographic areas of town. Historic and cultural, preserving the town's scenic landscapes and rural character. Housing, expanding water sewer infrastructure capacity to serve more diverse housing. The natural resources, protecting, ensuring water supply resources, and transportation, safe bicycle and pedestrian circulation. So I'm happy to take those and then go back up to the survey. It's just that's a little bit more in depth. And then finally, public input. Martha and Kristen both received a combination of letters or emails, letters or other documents attached to emails or straight emails. And this is a little complex to explain. It's written here so you can read through it, but I think it's helpful if I show you visually. Some of the people who sent comments on different days or, different emails. So I've called out, so I have kept the confidentiality of the people who submitted the comments. So I've numbered them. So each number is one person. The date of the correspondence, and then if there's multiple pages within that same correspondence, and you'll see what happens as the color change. So all the odd numbers are this blue-green color, at least on my screen it's blue-green. All the even numbers are these bright green colors. And then you'll see, so for example, I'll just skip ahead to one. So person number 4 sent an email on June 30th. They sent a second email on July 11th. So you see the color change within the same number. And that's just, it's helpful sometimes, I think, to know when a letter writer has sent multiple iterations or multiple comments rather, and when those were sent, just to be able to track them. So with all of these, I'm just skipping through to the end. So you can see there were 8 people total who sent multiple sets of comments. I'm going to make you dizzy by skipping back because I just want to call this out. So there's a couple of different ways that we are using this information. And the first way is in the executive summary. There's some pink text that says we're going to be updating this section of the executive summary based on the feedback from the online questionnaire. And that's where these top 2, so the land use, use of regulatory tools, identify priority and funding strategies, the community services, actually top 3 because there's a tie there. So each of the sections of the overall planning elements and their top reports or their top priorities, those will go into that executive summary so that people can see that. And then obviously they have all of the information in the appendix that you're seeing now. I think the next piece is we being myself first, and then with Martha and Kristen's help, are going through all of the comments received, whether it's the comments in the survey or the questionnaire rather, or the comments that were sent to us, or the comments from the public meeting. What are changes that are required in the plan because somebody has identified a factual error or has asked a question? That means that we need to go back and just double check. Did we provide the right amount? Or did they call out something that it appears to be written such that it causes confusion? So we're going through all of those comments to see what we can address there. So what I'll do is, as we do that, I will obviously be making edits to the plan. I will have a list of the changes that we've made to the plan. As with any set of comments, there are also comments that are our opinions, right? There's the facts. There are comments that say, hey, I'm confused what you're saying here. Maybe there's a better way to word it. And then there's a I think, or I would prefer, or it's my belief that, something that indicates that one person has a preference. Those we're not changing the plan for, because obviously we're just hearing from one person on that, and the next person who submitted a comment may be saying something exactly the opposite. So the plan won't change. But again, every single one of these comments is in this appendix and should be reviewed by yourselves, by the select board, by anybody who's interested in the next steps of the master plan. So I understand that you all have some thoughts about timing of the next steps, but I will be working with Martha and Kristen to evaluate those components that do change the plan, the confusing wording, the is the year right, is the number of something right, making sure that we have our facts straight on that. If they've been called into question, and then the usual final review of a document for typos or spelling mistakes or whatever. And then make sure that we get the final plan with the list of changes made, not the list of typos, because nobody wants to go through a list of typos, but the substantive, the material changes, get that to you so you have a chance to review it before your next meeting to discuss this matter.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Emily. Do you have a sense of when you might have that ready for us to look at?
We were talking about when your next meeting would be. I think you had a meeting on August 2nd as the next meeting, and I was going to hope to aim for that. There's a couple of things out there in terms of questions that we have I think somebody brought forward a map question, for example, and so we're having to do a little research on that. But assuming we don't have to do detailed research, and it didn't appear that we did for most of the questions or comments, assuming there's no detailed research, I would like to aim to have that in your hands for your August 2nd meeting, if that works for you.
Well, I don't know right now what we might have for August 2nd, but I'm thinking out loud that perhaps a special meeting for this, with this being the only item on the agenda, might be the way to go.
Okay.
I wonder if any of the board members have any thoughts on that, Pete?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that this topic would warrant its own separate meeting. So that's a great idea. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, George. You concur? You're muted, George.
It's muted. Yes, a dedicated meeting for it would make it much more significant for the board and give plenty of time for review.
And we won't feel like we're rushed for time either,
Exactly.
Yeah. Woody, did you concur?
I agree.
Yeah, and Mary?
Perfect.
So I guess what I'm going to suggest is I'll leave it to you, Emily, to work with Martha and Kristen, and then when you're ready, we'll pick a date and go forward.
That sounds great. I will work with Martha and Kristen. They've both been, as you can imagine, incredibly helpful in this process, and we'll just confirm what items need to be researched and set a date in advance and make sure that you all have plenty of time to, before that meeting, to be able to review the document in full and make sure you understand what the changes were and where they came from.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
All right,
Before
fantastic.
we let Emily go, anything further from the board members?
Just that I'm hopeful that this will reassure the public and the residents of Newbury that we are paying attention and we're going to continue pay attention. This is not a stick it up on the shelf kind of thing. This is a ongoing process to hear you and try to work with the residents to get this done right.
Thank you, Mary.
Larry, if I could,
sure.
Harry, fantastic comments. Thank you. I appreciate that. Emily, Kristen and Martha, I appreciate all of the energies you put into this and the continued diligence to bring this to where it needs to go for its next step. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. Well said. And well, like he said, I agree. All right. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Emily.
All right, Steve Sawyer, you're up again. You wanted to give us an update on 105 High Road?
Yeah. It's been a while since we checked in. So there was some questions, I think there was some questions regarding the swales and whether we're going to modify drainage, this, that, and the other. We've come to the conclusion that we're going to keep it as is with the swales, right? So right now, as of today, I think they've sold of course, the upper unit, the existing house was sold, and then
You're breaking up, Steve.
the binders in, which,
Could I make a suggestion? Steve, if we turn off your video, we might get a better audio from you.
Oh, okay.
Let's try that, and maybe from the beginning too, if that works.
That better? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
So far.
Yeah. That's what happens when you work out of the attic. It's a long way from the Wi-Fi. So yeah, so they've closed on four of the homes. So 3 of the new buildings down below, the binders in, they're just beginning the landscaping now. All except for one unit is the foundations are in. So we made good progress. It's been about 18 months. I know Joe was down to the landscape plan. I think there are some minor, I think there is an updated set of landscape drawings that actually provide more detail that I think I should provide to the board. What I should do is provide an updated plan set to make sure that any of the changes are minor as we move forward. Also, there are small patios in the rear of each of the 9 units. They're 10 by 20. So it's really not of total, which I think is less than 1% of the development area. So it has negligible or it has no impact as far as the stormwater mitigation and such. And the other good news is just this past week is they've begun to work back in the clearing for the trail and building the bridges, building the bridges across the wetland area. So I was out there with Pete, who's a super out there. We've walked the loop, confirmed the location, and I believe they've been working on that this week. So I'm hoping within 3 or 4 weeks that work will be complete. And then I guess overall schedule, the way I see this unfolding is right now it looks as if we won't, they have in the area where the future parking lot's going to be for the open space. There's a shed that they converted to basically an office, a job office down there. I see that being it would be aggressive to say that would be removed and converted by this fall. My feeling, it's more realistic that it will be, it would probably be spring, next spring. So spring of 2024, where the open space would be finished and available for the public. Right now, I don't think it's a good idea given the nature of the construction site for access in that area, but we're moving in that direction and everything's coming along. So I think what I'd be looking to do is just submit an updated set of plans that's going to show the patios and then also provide the landscape plans. I guess Martha, for those to be reviewed by the board, you need those 2 weeks before or 1 week before, or how's that? What time frame would you need the material for us to look at it at a meeting?
Yeah, I think 2 weeks before would be helpful, especially if it's something that Joe should be looking at as well.
Okay. All right. So that would work out well. I'm sure I can get it together and I'll be in for Bittersweet anyway. So on that second August meeting. So I think we'd be looking to come in on that and present any updates and changes. And I'm hoping by that point, by that point, there'll be great progress on the trails and stuff and the trails in the rear, and hopefully the swales. I was talking to Pete about getting the swales formed along each side of the property line. So it's moving along.
So if I understand, Steve, what you're gonna do is present us with a number of minor modifications. that would
Yes.
require the board approval.
Yep.
As opposed to field changes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we want to, with this, we want to make sure everything, and if there's something that's not agreed with, before we get too far, I want to make sure we can make changes.
Martha, before I turn to the board, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think not right now.
Okay. Pete, any questions?
Not right now, thanks.
George, anything?
Not now, thank you.
Woody?
No,
No. Mary, anything?
No,
No, I don't have any either. All right, Steve, thank you. We'll look forward to.
All right, thank-
information.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, that's the end of the agenda. So
oh,
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Unless
moved.
someone has any other business, anything else?
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mary. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Pete, I think
Getting over.
I heard you first. No discussion. All right, then Pete, how do you vote?
Yes, thank you.
George, how do you vote?
Yes, good night.
Woody, how do you vote?
yes.
And Mary, how do you vote?
Yes, indeedy.
I vote yes as well. So we're adjourned at 9:05 PM. Thank you all.